Welcome back to your Daily Dose. Again, my name is Robert. Susan will join us again soon. For now, this is part two with John. We just, it wasn't tigers and bears and that oh my. No, this was bobcats and possums and gators. So you run with and run in the wild. You explored what this means to your Parkinson's, I should say running before Parkinson's, running since Parkinson's. Now, how did that change? Well, first of all, let me get your diagnosis. What was your reaction to being diagnosed?
I think there was a comfort level just to know at that point. They had gone through everything, and one of the very last tests they ran was an ALS test for Lou Gehrig's, and we weren't exactly sure what test they were running until they came back and said, "Well, you don't have Lou Gehrig's disease," and that was kind of an eye opener. Like, oh man. So it was more of a relief, for me at least. But then I started to see my body start to kind of slow down, which was a frustration because, I could always just go. So that then became the next set of challenges. Like, how do we, how are we going to live with that? And how are we going to move forward with that? And I was able to, being part of with the Fox Foundation team, there's a local event that they do every year in Orlando called Pints for Parkinson's. And my wife dragged me there, and I met somebody my own age at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this lady, and I was just completely dumbfounded. She was moving a little bit. I was having a hard time hearing her every once in a while. She kind of slipped off of, we were sitting on bar stools, and she slipped off her bar stool a little bit. And I turned to my wife and I go, "What is wrong with her?" And she turns to me and she goes, "Honey, that's you." That was a huge eye opener. Like, that was like a, whoa, so it took me about 9 months after that to really come to grips with, okay, that's me. And I ended up friending her, and we actually became really, really good friends. And she really mentored me on how to kind of live, love, and laugh with Parkinson's, and not, be embarrassed about it. Going out and, tripping over something and being like, oh, because, there was about a 2-year window where we didn't want to really go do anything, because if I wasn't feeling good, it would be like, well, let's just go home. We don't need to do that, because, and then I felt like I was holding us more or less kind of hostage on the entire diagnosis. So
the community thing is something we've been talking a lot about recently, and I love the way you spoke about that entirely, because the stigma one feels having Parkinson's absolutely can just crush you, and it drives you into isolation, exacerbates all the symptoms, becomes the vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you had this mentor and you had that eye-opening experience, you're very fortunate, it sounds like.
Yeah, I am. And then, what she saw was that I was still running. So she actually trained to run New York. So I helped her train for New York and a couple other half marathons. My connection with actually running with Fox was I was running the 10K for Dopey one year, and I ran right past the Fox signs. So I told my wife, I said, "Hey, next year, I think I want to do this." Now, mind you, before then, I don't really run. And this year being the exception, I don't really run with people. I don't train with people. I like to kind of like stay in my own head. And my first Team Fox event, we ended up with a huge group of us. And I'd never run with a group before, ever. And for the marathon, we actually got on the roller coaster on Expedition Everest and rode Expedition Everest during Dopey. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And that the guy I ran with actually is a close friend of mine too, who I'm going to go run Tallahassee half marathon in a few weeks with. So I've created all these different friends and bonds through Dopey. And the one thing that I always like to do is I always like to try and cross the finish line with somebody different, and just to kind of share my experience and my story, and then listen to what their story is. And I've created amazing bonds and amazing friendships with that. And it keeps me going, and it keeps pushing me. And, and sometimes we'll finish the end of a race and I'm like, "Are you guys okay?" And they're like, "You're asking me if you're okay." I'm like, I'm like, "Do you need water? Do you need ice?" And they're looking at me going, "What's wrong with you? You're the one with Parkinson's." And I'm like, "But it's okay. I'm fine right now." So, And, I got a lot of bad looks. I get it. They get frustrated with me sometimes because, the first 13 or 14 miles are a little rough on my body, especially for the marathon. And then, the dopamine kicks in and I start warming up and I'm like, this is fun. And they're like, no, this is miserable. So, yeah.
I just love the way you said that. It's just perfect. The first 13 or 14 miles. To people who don't have, you develop a context when you begin to run, you expand your perspective. This was my first marathon. I'd done several halves, but suddenly things that sounded long don't anymore,
Yeah.
right? And once my training runs began to regularly be 14, 15 miles, you're right. The threshold of 13, the prior, no longer seemed like a big deal. Halves were like whatever. And when I reached the 13 on this, I was just like, man, that was nothing. So,
Yeah.
it's all your perspective and what you
Yeah.
put into, and it's a massive lesson in mind over matter. And also, what I heard you say there was the power of storytelling, both the stories you've developed and through your friendships, and then the stories you tell internally about yourself afterward, because you've kind of created a new you, it sounds like. And if I got this right, I'm extending my time here a little because I want to get this. You're on 75 days straight running, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. At least a mile every day.
Wow. Is that
Um,
for something in particular, or?
no, I just, when I had brain surgery this last January of 2022, so I was out for a while because of that. I should have been out for longer, but I was sneaking my bike, and then my wife caught me on the ring sneaking my bike. Um, but I had to really teach myself how to run again, because how my body's processing and the fact that I don't have this rigidity and all this stiffness. So it was really a building year this year with doing everything. And then I just got frustrated just kind of with how everything was going. So I decided I was just going to start running and just I have a friend that just went through 2,000 days. I think she's at 2,056 straight days of running. So I was, I'm like, well, if she can do it and she's in upstate New York, why can't I? And just, started and haven't stopped yet. So
There's that question. Why can't I? Which we sometimes say is why not? That's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm going to end this right here, just John, with my greatest thanks to you. What a wonderful
thank
thing.
you.
Is there anywhere people can find out more about your story or you that I can point them to? Or can they
We're
just
working
find you
on
out
it.
on the race course?
Yeah, they can find me on the race course. I'll have a Parkinson shirt on of some kind. But I'm going to be at Celebration in a few weeks, and then Tallahassee and maybe Daytona.
Outstanding.
We'll see. So,
All right.
but yeah, we're working on getting our story out there a little bit more.
Let's keep talking about it. We'll certainly have you here on the dose, and yeah, we'll probably have you again. I know Susan wants to say hi to you.
Okay.
Take
Excellent.
care.
Thank you. Thanks.